Yeah, so I guess my first question is how did you discover acupuncture, and kind of what is your relationship with the healing arts in general and discovering that? Just a quick overview.
I was starting in my late 20s, someone who got sick at the drop of a hat, and started figuring that out through alternative medicine. At the time, that was chiropractors were about the only ones doing much at that time. And, eventually started getting better. And then I saw acupuncture support our second pregnancy. And there was school here. The practitioner who was treating my wife was real encouraging. And when I was 43, I decided to go back to school.
Wow.
Primarily out of my own interest. It wasn't because I want to save the world or anything else. It's because I was really interested in what I saw happen in front of me with my wife and wanted to investigate that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. And sorry. And yeah, and so I guess you answered kind of what led to your connection between healing the body and acupuncture. You said that it was healing your wife, healing your own body as well. That you were doing acupuncture.
Yeah, that was less the case with me, but seeing pregnancy that was sentenced by Western medicine, this will never complete. And our son was born on the acupuncturist's birthday.
Whoa. Wow.
That's the power of this stuff. Yeah.
It is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So have you seen, so we have talked about what acupuncture has done for your life, and I guess in your personal practice, how have you seen it impact your larger community in Boone, and do you think that acupuncture should be an important aspect in healing our communities and the people within them?
Absolutely. It's unfortunate that the dominant narrative has become material medicine. This is probably the only medical system in the history of mankind that solely focuses on the material. It discards the spirit, it discards emotions. And that's a huge loss. We are, not physical bodies walking around in this world. We're a physical vessel that houses a spirit with a specific purpose. To be here to serve, to serve and fulfill a purpose. And a curriculum, if you will. We're each given a curriculum, and we're supposed to entertain the challenges of life, the successes of life, the lessons of life. That's what we're here to do. And that's called struggle. It's not an easy journey. And so the rifts that happen between people and community, etc., are generally driven by people losing sight of what their real mission is, what their meaning in life is. And meaning has been dramatically skewed in our culture in the first place because consumerism has brought power to the forefront and satisfaction through things as opposed to through living a genuine life and experiencing the satisfaction that comes from relating to other people and that. So acupuncture has a huge place kind of on an individual level working to help people restore that in their own life, to restore a sense of purpose. And I think restoring a sense of purpose is crucial to help people come together again. I mean, a common purpose is what we formerly had in this culture. The last common purpose that we had was World War II, and that was the last time this country was united. And the power principle has completely splintered everything since then, any sense of cohesion. But first and foremost, consumerism has done that by making me the focus of everything. What I want right now, in the color I want it in, is what's important, and industry has given me that. And I deserve that. It's all those concepts based around consumerism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And looking at our shadow, looking at our cultural shadows, at the dark side of what's behind all of this unrest and disconnection is crucial and painful process to examine what we've grown up accepting and being taught is the most important thing, and really coming to terms with it's probably the most destructive thing, and it is not what gives us a life of meaning, to collect things and to be able to buy things. Yes, that's part of life, but it's not the focus of life. So again, the restoration of people looking at meaning and people being able to relate, because we are relational beings. And acupuncture is enormously powerful at helping people right where they are as a starting point to reestablish a sense of who they are, a sense of who they are in the world, a sense of what the curriculum they've been given is, what their purpose is, and create their, reconstitute their ability to relate to other people, because that is what community is relationship to other people. So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And I guess maybe could you go a little bit deeper in how, I mean, I know you have to go to school for this, it's a large science, and there's a lot of philosophy and everything around it, but in kind of a short synopsis of how does acupuncture allow people to access that sense of purpose, and how are you able to use that energy and transmute it into another person through your art?
That's what the acupuncture channels, the energetic channels of acupuncture describe. We are born with a blank slate, not a blank slate. We're born with a program. We're born already programmed to, what our curriculum is. I keep using the word curriculum. I think that's a great word for it. To live out, this manifestation of consciousness, and to learn the lessons that we have to learn in order not to keep coming back, and that's really how we're supposed to be. Everything that starts telling us from the very time we're born to be something different than who we are is what accumulates in the body and blocks our access to where the message of who we really are and what our program is, to keep us from hearing that. So that message is stored in a channel called the Changmai, one of the 8 extraordinary channels, our DNA conduits. And that originates in what's called the kidney, or the center of gravity. And the Changmai, our destiny has to constantly be in circulation for us to register it. The way that we are built to hear what our internal message of our purpose is through gut feelings. That's why they're called that. We feel them in our gut. And oh, by the way, the neuron content of our gut is 80% as big as our brain. So this is an enormous neurological center. The gut feelings move from the kidney into the stomach, and then they're supposed to be transmitted unimpeded through a channel called the empty mile to our heart to be lived out, so that we live out our own destiny. So everything in life, all these impedances put on us, telling us that we're not this, we're not supposed to be a fireman because we're supposed to be a lawyer. Just tons of messages. We're not supposed to do this because it's unchristian. We're not supposed to do this because it's socially inappropriate. That is what starts to sort of take its place in the protective channels to try to buffer us from it, but it ultimately has an impeding process on that free and clear transmission of who we really are to our heart. The heart is the seat of the emperor, and it is empty, meaning that it's open to all the possibilities programmed into your destiny, all the possibilities for the kingdom, so that it can live them out. So that's how it's described. And so therefore acupuncture, by helping unload all of the things that have been loaded on us, that have impeded that concept, and then starting to reopen and deploy the Chiang Mai, for instance, to get the blueprint back out there so you can start to hear it, to reinstitute a sense of who you are and your place in the world. All of those are parts of the channel system that, you know, depends on the individual as to how, what the navigation is to start to get to even working at that level. The unloading process, you know, is very intricate, not from it's a technical thing, but it's just for each individual, it's not an easy process to unload what we've stored. But these, they're called the complement channels, clearly offer real clear ways to do that.
I see.
Yeah.
And so are we constantly like unloading and then rebuilding and unloading, or is it kind of an unloading first so that we can get to that place of rebuilding?
Depends on the person. You know, sometimes you can't unload anything until they have a sort of a sense of, wow, that's not who I am at all. This is who I am. Other people, you can't get to that channel until they've gotten some of their other riffraff out of the way. Some of the load they've accumulated in their channels of latency. So that's the sort of learning to be present and listen to people. Listen not to what they're saying necessarily, but what their being is saying, and getting in sync with them. That happens through the energetic pulses. That's where the real truth comes out. Right. And that's, you know, the ability to listen and discern and not have a rational thought process involved in it to decide, I know what this patient needs, because no one knows better than a patient what they need, but they might not be able to say it verbally, but on an energetic level they can say it. So that's what the pulses are all about.
I see. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So it's an interesting and, you know, not easy cultivation process to become a good energetic practitioner, because you've got to unload a lot of your own stuff. And there's just no way around that. And you've got to unload a lot of our cultural habits, like thinking is everything. Feeling is a lot. There's a lot more, but that needs to be reclaimed in the realm of feeling, but because everything can't be thought out. That's our human fantasy.
Totally.
With our big fat brains.
I agree.
Yeah. What else?
And I have another question, kind of more related to nature and your relationship with nature. And I guess, can you describe a little bit how acupuncture and nature go hand in hand in kind of understanding the practice and understanding the body and our relationship to it?
Well, the dead starting point premise of this medicine is that we're part of nature and inextricable from it. You know, again, and back to what we were saying about our human brain, that's the only thing that separated us from nature, is the mind. And that's, you know, an affliction we have as human beings. That's the mind, and being able to have a fantasy and tell a story is what has set Homo sapien apart, and what has allowed us to destroy nature through our ingenuity. I mean, we're now, you know, heavily damaging ourselves through our ingenuity. That's all it is. We, you know, chemicals, radiation, to name a couple, but then, you know, this splintering of societies through information management is a dramatic destructive force. And, you know, no longer having any clear way to discern fact from fiction in the world is a dramatic blow to humanity. And that's the direct result of our minds. Nothing else. So, rejoining us to the way nature works is one of the ideal goals in this medicine. Eating food like it occurs in nature from a food intake perspective. But it's just getting more and more difficult on a psychological, emotional, spiritual realm to discern and to be able to live out, who you really are intended to be, because of the amount of lying and clouding of connection, relationship that's happened through the escalation in population and then technology. Technology. All the thinking people on the planet believe technology is going to save us from ourselves, but no, I'm sorry. We've got to do something different than think in order to save ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect.
Good.
Yeah, I think that answered all the questions, and yeah, I think that, if I were going to ask one more question, I guess it would be like, what's the advice, for someone who maybe doesn't really have access to acupuncture or these other, the kind of reservoir knowledge of alternative medicine in general. I guess what you're saying is to tune inwards and to really look at ourselves and our bodies, but is that what you would say?
Yeah, again, had a conversation earlier about this today of, how can I work on somatized illness. And it's an incredibly complex process, but the premise is you have to examine your life. And unfortunately we have no real significant tradition of that in our culture. Our religion doesn't offer us much in the way of introspection. It seems to me, from my experience, that religion has become another thing that keeps us outside of ourselves and away from ourselves. The way that it has been crafted for this culture. The basic premise is to create happiness just like everything else around us. And that's, I don't think, a function of religion. It's ideally to give us ritual that can help us discover a more deeper connection to ourselves. But the painful process of looking at all the shit that's been piled on your plate during your life, a lot of it we don't even know about because it happened before we were precognitive, but it's stashed in our bodies. That's what these channels can work on. There are lots of different ways, but something other than just burying, learning to entertain your emotions in a deep sense, and not just like it's something to be gotten rid of. Depression, anxiety, all those things are a reflection of something's off in my life. I need to start looking at the basic premises of what I believe and how I'm living. And that's challenging because, the easiest thing in the world to do is go along with everything else, just like don't ruffle anybody's feathers. That's what we're kind of taught in our education and religious systems to do. And it doesn't help you evolve yourself. The thing that saved my life, I think, and saved my existence is depth psychology, is Jungian psychology, and just the process of rediscovering and winning back myself. And it's been a long and ongoing and long process, because we're never done with that. Right. But throwing psychology out the window away from health is a huge mistake, because it's much more important than what we eat as food. What's coming at us in the world and how we digest that and assimilate or eliminate all of these emotional things that are coming at us in the world, the ever-increasing fact from fiction struggle, the downright lies that we're told by Western medicine, by big business, the absolute rendering us helpless through our inability to fight back against corporate America now, them having gained super individual status, looking at the social problems and feeling helpless to react to them. All those things are part of what we're processing and part of us. And understanding what you're doing with those emotions is crucial. But again, our tendency is just to bury and carry everything in our body, and that leads to physical illness in the long run. Yeah. If not emotional illness in the short and long run. They're not separate.
Yeah. It seems like everything that happens on the micro level, like understanding what's happening there, is kind of a gateway into understanding what's happening all around us and in our culture and society, and I'm sure like the reverse is the same.
Yeah, it's a two-way street, the impacts on us from the bigger picture as it evolves, can change everybody on such a fine and subtle level that the change is there before we all know it. I think the internet age is a real good example of that. It's just like steamrolled us.
Right.
So yeah, self-examination, finding a wise guide, which is a hard thing to do, but you got to start somewhere and doing something. Meditation can be helpful. Yoga can be helpful. It can also be used solely as escapes, where you just use that as a time not to try to feel anything, but the idea is we have to feel what we feel, as hard as that is, and accepting the premise that life is a struggle. It's not about having it easy, and it's not about feeling uncomfortable. We're supposed to be challenged. We're supposed to be uncomfortable. That's what stimulates us to react and be alive. And that's another interesting cultural thing where, more associated with the left political thinking, that I shouldn't have to be inconvenienced or suffer any kind of insult in my life. And that's just inhumane. It's not possible. You need to learn how to withstand that. That creates resilience.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
So many of these realms can be addressed, again, depending on the layers that come up through this medicine. Yeah. Good.
Great. That's like such beautiful wisdom, and thank you for talking with me.
It unfortunately, again, from a sort of it's a countercultural perspective to think that what you say sounds negative, but there's a lot of darkness floating around in our culture right now, and burying that darkness and saying, oh no, everything's going to be fine, and I don't have to take responsibility for that, and all I can do is run from it, stick my head in the sand, live a happy life, have plenty of material things. That's all that's really that I want.
Yeah.
That's ignoring the foundational destruction that's happening right under our feet.
Right.
And stuffing it inside yourself to create lots of fear about everything. So.
Completely. When I read something today, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita for my yoga class, and it was so interesting. I read the interpretation of the certain passage, and it was in order for the light to shine through, you must recognize that there's darkness, and which is I kind of been I've been trying to push the darkness away so much. And
that's we've learned that honestly through the culture.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And no, we can absolutely, being in denial of the darkness is you can never, it doesn't work. It kills you.
Right.
Because the darkness can kill you. Your own shadow can kill you.
Right.
The shadow of our culture is what's slowly trying to kill us right
Yeah, I agree. We'll have to be speculative about it, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's essential, and that's the painful part of the individuation process. As Carl Jung described it, is you've got to go into the dark mind to find the gold. You've got to go and examine all this pain and suffering that's in your body and in your spirit.
Right.
In your mind, I wouldn't say it's in your spirit. Your spirit's kind of untouchable. It can certainly dampen your spirit. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's this happy, that the happiness, positivity culture. It just never is how humans have worked. We've only been convinced through consumerism that that's how it's supposed to work.
right.
Great film you ought to watch. It's called The Century of the Self. And it's about the story of our cultural brainwashing,
Well,
starting with this one person who happened to be Sigmund Freud's nephew.
that's pretty cool.
It's on YouTube, free of charge. Look it up. The
Okay.
Century of the Self.
Center of the Self. I will.
Edward Bernays is this guy's name.
Cool.
It's fascinating. It's not a particularly high quality thing, but it's good history. It's an essential history.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Dude.
Yeah, I was